Two murder investigations from the case files of Lieutenant Joe Kenda. A savage knife attack leaves a middle-aged mother clinging to life.
This is an incredibly violent crime.
Kenda's on the hunt for a suspect with a twisted mind.
There were some things that just didn't make sense.
People behave in certain ways for a reason.
Police, open up!
Then,
Oh my God.
the discovery of a hidden confession opens the door to an age-old murder mystery.
1893.
Yeah, how about fell off my chair?
Murder is murder. There's no statute of limitations, even from the Old West.
I want you to leave now.
This isn't self-defense. You are lying pure and simple. This country has always been armed to the teeth, and it certainly was in the Old West. Death, murder, assault was a very common thing. No one was surprised by it. People expected it. There's one thing that never changes: murder. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories. I never know where a case is going to lead, but I'll never stop until it's solved. Somebody has to look out for the victim.
If you kill, I will find you.
This was in a nice residential neighborhood, basically in the northeast part of Colorado Springs. Sheila Scott was in her kitchen baking cookies. She hears a knock.
Sheila, where's your phone?
And she finds that it's her neighbor, Jerry Denton.
Jerry, what happened?
Your phone, Sheila, I need it.
Jerry, you're back.
She's freaked that on his back there's blood.
Yeah, I need an ambulance. Look, my wife's been stabbed. I think she's dying.
Across town, Sergeant Joe Kenda is enjoying lunch from one of his favorite local food joints.
There was a hamburger stand in Colorado Springs that's now unfortunately out of business that made giant, oversized hamburgers. They were wonderful.
How's the dog?
The kids love him. He's a pain in my ass. Keep pissing on the carpet.
Still isn't housebroken yet?
Not yet, man. I'm trying my best. He won't listen to nothing I say.
I should try talking a little nicer to him.
Now you sound like my wife.
Dispatch to 4 Paul 1.
Go 4, Paul 1.
There's a call comes over the radio, an attempted murder.
10-4, I'm on the way.
I guess duty calls. You gotta go.
When you receive a call in my line of work, just eat it or leave it and go do your job.
Good luck with the dog.
Yeah.
Hey, Skip.
Hey, Sergeant.
So what have we got?
2 victims, married couple, both suffered stab wounds.
I was one of the first detectives to arrive at the scene, and all we knew is that Jerry Denton, the husband, had a stab wound in his back, and his wife, Pat Denton, had actually been stabbed in the neck.
We took them both to the hospital. Jerry isn't in too bad shape, but word on his wife is she's unlikely to survive.
Any kids?
Yeah, they got 2, but they're both at school.
Jerry's a contractor for a development company, and Pat is a stay-at-home mom. And together, they have a nice little family.
So Jerry told the comm center that it was an intruder, but I'm not so sure we should rule him out just yet.
All right. Let's take a look inside.
The most common call that the police respond to is a domestic disturbance, where husbands and wives get into violent confrontations.
Was this something that happened between the two of them, or were there any other suspects?
This is where EMS found the body.
There's a large pool of blood in the kitchen, followed by a blood trail. It's apparent that she staggers and collapses on the floor and is bleeding profusely from a neck wound. Detective Arms tells me that the house phone line had been cut, which explains why the 911 call was made from a neighbor's house.
What have we got in here?
In the house, there was a pile of clothes on the floor. That seemed out of place for this crime scene.
Who do you think they belong to?
Could be any number of people.
Is it the husband's clothes? Is it somebody else's? Somebody got undressed in here. Why would they do that?
I've got an idea. Where's the bedroom at?
Right this way.
So we went up to the master bedroom.
Wanna grab one of those?
Found the husband's shoes and compared the shoes to these.
They're different sizes.
That led us to believe that they were not Jerry's clothes.
What if the missus has a boyfriend? Dad comes home, finds this undressed person in his house, and he assumes he's not a nudist who came in to use the phone, and the knife comes out.
Let's go see what else we got.
We go back downstairs. We go looking around. We find the patio door has been broken.
Sergeant, here, check this out.
Coins.
The physical evidence indicates this is a burglary. It's somebody who's doing a crime in this house, not a boyfriend of the wife, and not the husband.
So Pat and Jerry discover a burglar in the kitchen. He freaks and grabs a knife.
And whoever he is shouldn't be too hard to find. If those are the suspect's clothes on the floor in there, we got a guy running around in his underwear. Let's go.
Now, why does he get undressed? Well, that's the $64 question. People behave in certain ways for a reason. We just don't know what it is.
Kenda dispatch.
Kenda and I broadcast out to the officers in the immediate vicinity of the crime scene, warning them to be on the lookout for someone who is considered dangerous, would have only been wearing underwear and socks.
As the search commences, Kenda and Arms hope victim Jerry Denton might be able to bring some clarity to the investigation.
How's it going in here? Jerry, I'm Sergeant Kenda. You okay to talk?
Yeah, sure.
Do you know who did this to you and your wife?
Yes and no.
What do you mean?
There's this teen with brown hair. I don't know his name, but I think he lives on our street.
So now the question becomes simple. Which kid and in which house? This particular case involves a married couple who become victims of an incredibly violent crime. The husband knows that the perpetrator lives in the neighborhood.
Why don't you just start from the beginning?
Okay, well, it all started late this morning when I was at work. Yeah.
Something happened, but don't worry. April and I are fine.
What do you mean? What happened?
Pat tells him that there's a neighbor kid that came to the house this morning at 10 o'clock, and she recognized him, so she let him in.
Pat said he was acting strangely, so she sent April to her room. And then she said he pulled out a knife and he was gonna rape her.
But she's able to talk him out of doing this, and he is able to basically have him eventually leave the house without engaging in any type of sexual assault.
And obviously, I'm freaking out as she's telling me all this. Are you at the police station now?
No, I'm at home.
What?
I don't think we need to call cops, sweetheart.
Honey, this is serious. You could be in danger. But why don't you drive over to my office? You can spend the rest of the day here.
Okay, well, I have to take April to kindergarten anyway, so I will see you in a little bit.
And that's when you called the police to tell them what happened?
No, we didn't call you guys that time. Pat wouldn't let me.
Why not exactly?
One of the ways that Pat got the perpetrator out of the house was to promise not to call the police if he didn't harm her.
I should have put my foot down and called, but we didn't. And then when we got home, that's when it happened.
Jerry tells us that he and Pat got home in separate cars, but essentially at the same time. Pat walks into the house, and Jerry initially goes to check the mail. He sees that Pat's been stabbed in the neck.
You gotta let go.
He said he didn't know what to do. He took the knife out and tried to put a towel around her neck.
Look at me. Look at me. You're okay. Look at me. No, it's okay. It's okay. Look at me. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Look at me. Look at me. Okay.
Stay away from me.
And that's when he got attacked from behind.
See, I saw him just standing there, this brown-haired teen. He was going crazy and stuff.
Stay the away from me, man. You kill me, I'll kill you. I swear.
And then he ran out of the house.
Did you see where he went?
No, but I'm guessing he went home because he was just in his underwear and socks. Maybe Pat might know in house. I don't know.
Okay, Jerry. Thank you. Hope you get better soon.
After learning more about his suspect,
Kenda dispatch. Go ahead and secure.
Kenda makes necessary preparations.
So I notified the tactical unit commander that we may have a situation here where we're going to have to take a kid out of a house. I don't know yet. So they get their team assembled to stand by in the event that we determine location and identity.
In the meantime, detectives hope to gather more information from Pat Denton herself. But there's one problem.
Pat couldn't talk. She'd had surgery to repair her throat.
I know you're not supposed to talk.
So we explain who we are and what we're doing. And I said, I know you're not supposed to speak to me, but can you write?
Can you tell us the name of the person that did this to you?
She writes David.
You know his last name? How about where he lives?
Mrs. Denton writes directly across the street, one house to the left.
Now, hang in there. You're gonna be okay.
And then she wrote something else. I looked at it and it said, why me?
I don't know why you, but we're gonna find the person that did this.
So I said, my dear, I know we will find him and we will punish him for what he has done.
Kenda dispatch.
Dispatch to Kenda.
With a name and address for their suspect,
10-4.
I'll be right over.
Kenda deploys the tactical team waiting on standby.
This is called a high-risk arrest. You're dealing with someone who exhibits violence, who announces he's insane. It is very dangerous.
Police, open up!
What?
David, where's David?
My son, he's in his bedroom.
All right, step outside, ma'am.
Well, what is this? David didn't do anything.
Ma'am, he's wanted in connection with an attempted murder that occurred this morning.
That's impossible. He's been with me all day. He's been sleeping.
Stay with her.
Police department!
He's on the bed.
Get out of the bed right now. Get out of the bed.
Hands on your head. Turn around to the bed. Hands behind your back.
What's going on? I didn't do anything.
David, where were you between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m.?
I've been sleeping.
Let's clear this up.
The shoes we found in that house, the crime scene, are a size 10. David's are a size 7.
Go Go ahead and uncuff him. Sorry for the intrusion, David. Lynn, can you bring in Miss Andrews?
So at that point, we're kind of confused because we have David, but David's not our guy.
So much for the David lead. Apologies, Miss Andrews.
Wait. Are you guys looking for the other David?
The other David?
My friend David, he's been staying with us for a while. He's got some problems, I guess you could say.
Well, that would be the David that I'm looking for because he has a lot of problems, and he's about to have another one. The tactical unit has made entry into the suspect residence.
Are you guys looking for the other David?
We found a kid named David, and he's the wrong David. So I speak to Mom, and the mother says that David Dodson has come to live with them.
He's a 17-year-old kid. He does fit the description.
I thought he seemed like a good kid. He's pretty quiet.
So why was he staying here?
Well, he moved to the Springs from Oklahoma City a couple months ago, but things weren't working out at home.
The mother explains that David Dodson, he's kind of a lost soul. She felt sorry for him, and she allowed him to move in.
Have you seen David at all since this morning? We think he might have returned to get some clothes.
No, he hasn't been back.
Where is he now? This kid is naked, he's on foot. He needs to find clothing, and he needs to find a way out because he assumes, quite correctly, that the police are on his heels.
Excuse me, Sergeant. Got a report of a stolen car, 2 blocks from the crime scene.
Just like that. Another lead. Is this connected? It's just too close not to be.
Let's go. Excuse me.
Detectives head out to follow up on the potential lead of the stolen car.
I had it parked right there.
Were the keys in there?
Well, no, but I do leave a spare under my bumper.
Back in the days, we all had those little stick-on hide-a-key things. We all put them in the same place, which was brilliant because anybody who wanted to steal a car knew there was a handy key, like it's not right under the bumper.
Was there anything of value in the car?
Not really, just some cash. And my boyfriend left some clothes in there.
Clothes.
This kid gets incredibly lucky. He finds a truck that happens to have jeans, a shirt, and some sneakers. How does that happen?
So now our man has clothes, he's got money, and he's got transport. Now, where does a fugitive run to? Predictable places.
All right, well, thank you.
They go find their mama, their girlfriend, or their money.
Lieutenant Kenda, dispatch.
So I'm thinking now that maybe he's going back to Oklahoma.
I need a bolo put out.
We put out an alert to all agencies in Oklahoma. We're looking for this stolen car that may contain a male David Dodson. We describe him.
Colorado Springs authorities keep up the search for their fugitive. But they turn up nothing. However, 2 days later, over 300 miles away in Oklahoma.
It looks like it, doesn't it?
It does.
5-4 dispatch. We got a matching vehicle, that bolo. Tag 870 Fox Ocean. Wolf. Hey, young man, what's your name?
Officers approached him.
David Dodson.
And he essentially blurted right out.
Stabbed 2 people in Colorado.
Go ahead and turn around for me.
Great. Simple enough.
Put your hand behind
Time to put handcuffs on you. We extradite him from Oklahoma to Colorado to face charges.
In addition to confessing to the crime, David Dodson makes a shocking claim.
He indicated that he had taken some LSD that morning and also had been drinking. And so he was in sort of a hazy state of mind, if you will, when this whole thing happened.
Along with the suspect, Oklahoma City deputies send along something else, a taped confession.
My name is David Dodson. I stabbed a woman with a knife and then her husband. Then I stayed hidden a few hours until I stole that car.
There's no point in beating a dead horse.
That's it?
That's enough.
We prefer to get our own statement from him, but we have a statement. And we certainly have a surviving witness who can identify him. We don't need him to confess to us. He already did, the Oklahoma City Police Department. I mean, we take the cassette tape, put in evidence. You have a statement, accept it.
Detectives still have many questions, but luckily, there is someone who lived to tell the tale.
Pat Denton's recovering from her injuries, able to speak. She was going to be fine.
Did you know David Dodson prior to this?
I mean, I saw him around the neighborhood. That was about it. Good morning. I barely said 2 words to him. And then that morning, he shows up at the house. Hi.
Hi, I'm David from across the street. I was wondering if I could ask for a favor.
Oh, well, sure. What can I do for you?
This young man asked her for a cup of sugar.
How much do you need? April, why don't you go and play in your room for me, okay? Thank you.
Even though April was little, she saw him coming in and she could tell her mom was uncomfortable. Something was off.
Take your clothes off.
What?
Take your clothes off.
What? I'm sorry. I started talking. I made up a story. No, you don't want to do that, David. I'm dying, David. I have AIDS.
What?
Yeah.
That was really thinking on her feet, and she stuck with it.
Is everything okay?
Not really.
Well, why don't we sit down and talk about it? Would you like some coffee? Or, yeah? Okay. Yeah, it's all right.
She eventually gets him to calm down.
If David had in fact taken LSD, it could explain his impressionable behavior.
Sometimes I feel like I'm dying, you know?
Yeah.
And nobody cares?
Within minutes, he was opening his heart to Pat.
Well, they should care.
She could tell he was a mess and genuinely saw this as an opportunity to get a fellow human being on the right path in life. That's just who she was.
You're not gonna call the cops, are you?
No, I promise. I'm not going to call the cops. David, if you'll excuse me, I really need to get my daughter to kindergarten. So,
She was very, very fortunate that she was able to talk him out of it.
Kenda believes that during the first encounter, David noticed the jars filled with coins.
He thinks about that as the day wears on, and he's still suffering from the effects of the LSD, but he decides now it's time to burglarize their house. When he sees Mrs. Denton come home, he then changes his mind. He decides to carry out what he was going to do before. He cuts the phone line and he strips his clothes off. It doesn't make any sense that he does that, but that's what he does.
As Pat went to scream, he lunged at her and stabbed where the noise was coming from, which is essentially why he got her in the throat. After David stabs Pat, Jerry comes in the house to try to help his wife. And it's at that point when Jerry's focused on his wife that David stabs Jerry in the back.
Stay away from me! You kill me, I'll kill you, I swear to God.
Well, you're lucky to be alive.
The surgeon said the blade missed her carotid artery by 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch is nothing. In her case, it meant her life.
She lived. So did Jerry. That's what really matters. They lived.
David Dodson pleads guilty and is sentenced to 16 years for attempted murder and 14 years for assault in the first degree.
There are several things that stick out to me about this case. One is that there were a lot of people who were really lucky because nobody died. An ironic little piece of luck happened to our perpetrator. He got real lucky when there was something he needed.
People are dangerous. When you see something, you tell someone. You don't rely on your word. Oh, please. To who? A criminal? Call the police. Call the police.
Coming up,
Dad, there's something kind of weird on here.
a startling discovery
Oh my God.
reveals a murderous history.
1893.
We found what is probably a dark family secret.
At this point, I'm thinking there's got to be something else.
Marguerite Buckley.
This is truly a voice from the grave.
Just 10 miles south of Colorado Springs, in the town of Fountain, Jim Eggleston has his hands full with his new home.
When we purchased the home, we knew we would have to do a lot of renovation because it was a very old home. We had to strip the molding from the windows so I could refinish them.
Here you go, honey.
I was trying to be very easy pulling all the molding off and then handing it to my daughter.
Hey, Dad, there's something kind of weird on here. It looks like handwriting.
Let me see. Yeah, you're right.
It was in pencil. It was hard to read at first because it was a different penmanship, you know, an old-time penmanship.
I, John W. Spicer, of the city of Fountain, something. Oh my God.
When I saw the word murder, I said, holy, this is a murder confession.
The next morning, at the El Paso County District Attorney's Office, investigator Larry Martin is catching up on some paperwork.
Hey, Larry.
Oh, hey, Chief, how you doing?
Well, we've got something. I was hoping you could take a look at it. It was on the back of a piece of molding in an old house in Fountain.
My chief said that he'd gotten a call from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation advising that they had in their possession a possible murder confession, so they contacted the district attorney's office to see if we would be willing to open an investigation.
That's mostly obscured by all this paint and stuff.
The lab at CBI is working on cleaning it up without removing the writing.
Right.
It's in pencil.
Upon examining this, I noticed right away that some particular words jumped out at me. I did kill and willfully murder.
Assigned John Spicer. And there's this.
1893?
Yep.
Wow.
As a member of a modern police force, you don't get an opportunity to open a window into the past very often. In 1986, we ran across something extremely unusual, and it was a window into 100 years before that day.
Martin's first step will be determining whether this is a bona fide confession to an 1893 murder or a hoax.
This could be something that some teenager, perhaps maybe 15, 20 years ago, had done if he was living in the house.
When the investigator came over, I walked him in and showed him
right up there that the piece came from.
Okay. Now I'm trying to get an idea of how old the molding actually is. Is it possible that it could have been put up with an earlier renovation, maybe 15, 20 years ago?
No, no way.
It was totally original construction. It had not been renovated before we purchased it. It was still in its natural state.
Do you know how old the house actually is?
Not exactly, but I remember the real estate agent telling me it's one of the oldest houses in all of Fountain.
Okay. Well, that would put it before the 1900s. Hey, this could be legit. Is this the rest of the molding that you pulled
Yeah,
down?
right here in the corner. Careful, there's nails in some of that there.
You didn't find anything else on any of these other ones?
No, we looked these up and down. We didn't find anything.
All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate it. Have a good day.
Hey, before you go, this murder, do you think it could have happened here in the house?
Well, that's one thing we're trying to figure out, but it's definitely a possibility.
I was going, oh my God. We were amazed and a little spooked.
After learning the house is one of the oldest in the area, Martin knows just where he can go to find its true age and more.
Larry Martin goes to the Pioneer Museum to see what records they had on when the house was built.
The Pioneers Museum houses records from Colorado Springs and El Paso County, and it's our largest local depository of historical information in the area.
Here's the deed to the property that you asked about.
The house was built in 1899. It's one of the first two-story homes built in the area, and it was a private residence.
It was owned by the Perkins family, and the builder was a John Spicer.
It's the guy who wrote the confession.
Oh. So now it's starting to make sense. He built the house in 1899.
John Spicer was a carpenter. Many families around the area hired him to help build their homes.
Now, this was 6 years after the purported murder took place. This is when he could have decided to write that confession.
Someone once said guilt is a terrible thing, and it is. Release of that burden becomes paramount as people age.
John Spicer nailed it to a wall, hoping that in some time in the very far future, maybe somebody would find it. Now I'm thinking, this is no hoax. I've got a case that dates back 100 years, and where am I going to find the information I need?
One possibility is Colorado Springs Police. Could they have a century-old case file on this murder?
Larry, hey, Joe, take a look at this.
So I went to Joe, and once I laid it out to him, his eyes bugged out. He was very interested in this.
Wow.
This was an opportunity to look at things that I've always been interested in. History, one of my passions, and the Old West.
So how can I help? I think you can go through the police records and see if there's anything on this murder on the file.
I don't have to. They don't exist. CSPD wasn't around in 1893.
The actual municipal police department wasn't formed until 1901. Before that time, there were deputy marshals, and they were the law, and they dispensed justice on the spot in most cases.
So no police. The marshal didn't do much investigating back then. I say your best bet's the library.
Yeah, that was my next step. Give it a shot.
Listen, I know it's your case. If you need any help, let me know. I'd love to help out.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Joe.
So I was able to go to the Penrose Public Library and do some research on their old newspaper articles. In my research, though, I came across an article from the late 1950s where it mentioned a lady who was helping a family from Illinois find headstones for burial sites for some of the Locke and Spicer families.
Marguerite Buckley.
Is that a lead that I can maybe get more information on who John Spicer was?
Later that afternoon, Martin finds a phone number in the directory and gives it a try.
Hi, I'm looking for a Marguerite Buckley.
This is she.
Hi, Marguerite. This is Detective Larry Martin. I'm doing a little bit of research on a man named John Spicer, and I was wondering if you knew anything about him.
Well, I do. John Spicer was my father.
I about fell off my chair. What? I've got the daughter to the confessed killer?
All right, thank you so much, Bernie. All right, bye.
I called Joe and I said, let's go.
At her home, 89-year-old Marguerite Spicer Buckley happily shares stories of her father.
My dad had a lot of different jobs when I was growing up.
Marguerite explained he was sort of a general laborer. He worked in a railroad. He was a carpenter. He'd done what he had to do to survive and feed his family.
So he was a good father?
Well, not exactly. When he wasn't working, he was drinking somewhere.
She was very blunt that her dad was an ugly drunk. He was very mean. And when he started drinking, she would actually pour his whiskey for him and give him a lot of whiskey because she wanted him to pass out very quickly.
Get it, girl!
Sorry, Pop.
I ought to teach you a lesson for being so careless. Now get him outside before I change my mind.
Gambling, he got into that too.
In the 1880s, 1890s, gambling went hand in hand with drinking. That was their entertainment.
So I finally told her, I got to be honest with you. The reason I'm doing a history on him is he may have committed a murder.
We found what we believe to be a confession written by your father.
Her demeanor changed instantly.
If you don't mind, I want you to leave now. I'm tired. I don't think that I could be of any more use to you.
Thank you, man.
When you interview people as much as us, you know when you touch a nerve. You've found what is probably a dark family secret that they really don't want you to know. We need to get to the bottom of this. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation has been working on deciphering a confession to an 1893 murder. We believe that John Spicer killed someone, and we also believe that his daughter, Marguerite, knows something about it.
This is Investigator Martin.
I eventually get a telephone call from Agent Mooney of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
I've been working on this piece of wood you brought me.
He said he was able to decipher the name of the victim, John Sebastian.
We're still trying to clean up the rest of the confession.
Hey, this is great.
This is critical information, which we didn't have before. So now we have to look at this John Sebastian.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Who is he?
Martin and Kenda return to the Pioneers Museum to look through old city directories for traces of their victim.
So we go through these old records in the city directory, which at that time was a publication like a phone book in the 19th century, where all residents of the city were identified by name, by occupation, by age, and by address. Literally, they would go knock on every door. Who are you, and what do you do, and do you live here alone, and so on.
And bang, 1893, we find the name John J. Sebastian. Lived in Colorado Springs, worked for the railroad.
The last time his name appears in the city directory is 1893. In the 1894 edition and beyond, no John Sebastian. Did he dry up and blow away, or did John Spicer kill him?
Once we learn about John Sebastian, it's clear we need to talk to Marguerite again to find out, did she know the Sebastian family? So Joe and I went down. We actually brought her some flowers, kind of a peace offering.
I know we sort of ended on a bad note.
Please, just sit down. I'm so glad you came back. It's time the truth came out.
I knew then, okay, here it comes.
The story you're about to hear from me was told me by my mother, and it was told her by my father, John Spicer.
John Spicer told his wife he'd been hired to break some wild horses. And he was building a fence to contain these horses.
He heard a man sneaking up on him.
Give me your money. I'll cut you. Give me your money. Come on. What you got?
Spicer was forced to defend himself.
Marguerite tells me that her father struck this man in the head, and it killed him. Marguerite said her dad searched through the man's pockets to try to find out who this person was, but there was no identification on him whatsoever.
He went and told the marshal who came out to investigate, and he determined that he had killed the man in self-defense.
The man who died, could his name have been John Sebastian?
No, I don't recognize the name. But the marshal always said that he probably was a drifter.
Marguerite Buckley did not know his name and only knew him as a drifter. That was a common term in the West in that period of time. People wandered around and picked up labor and picked up jobs, cowboy work, cattle work, fence building, and moved on to some other village and then did the same thing. And they were referred to as drifters.
At this point, I'm thinking, there's got to be something else.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Why would Spicer tell his family he didn't know the guy's name, but then definitely write John Sebastian on the confession?
Maybe because he didn't want to tell his family the whole story. Maybe John Spicer isn't the hero he claimed to be.
I think Spicer's lying, pure and simple. You didn't talk to anybody, except to your wife. And when you talked to her, you lied to her.
Later that day, a call from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation sheds some more light on Kenda's theory.
Finally able to make out most of the confession. Spicer pretty much lays out everything. Apparently he hits this guy John Sebastian with a club to rob him for $5,000 worth of cash and jewelry.
This isn't self-defense. Spicer killed the guy for a reason.
That's a lot of money in 1893. In today's monetary value, that would be around $130,000 probably. There is no way John Sebastian could have earned that kind of money working for the railroad.
There are only two ways you can have that kind of money: through being a gold miner and having a successful claim in the mountains, or through gambling. And his daughter Marguerite tells us that he was a gambler. And I believe that's the common thread between John Spicer and Sebastian.
Put your money in, Sebastian.
John Spicer and John Sebastian met, perhaps through the railroad where they worked. They gambled. They drank.
Bitch.
On this particular day, John Sebastian was the big winner. He wiped everybody out. Not only their money, but their rings, their watches, and any jewelry they may have had on them. You lose your cash, you want to try to win it back, so you put your watch up, you put your ring up, trying to win that money back.
Now, money, sex, and revenge, the three driving elements of homicide, have always been the case since the days of the Roman Empire, and this was no different.
Hand it over, Spicer.
John Spicer knew the wife was not going to be happy. He had squandered away all of his money.
Well, boys, it's been fun.
He needed to somehow get that money back.
He cheated.
It's at this point, John Spicer himself lays out what happened next.
To whomever may happen to find this confession, on or about the first day of March, 1893, I, John W. Spicer, did kill and willfully murder with a club one John J. Sebastian. For his money and jewelry to the value of $5,000. The hope that when I'm gone, this confession may be found and at last clear up the darkest mystery that ever embraced one in human murder. In prayer for the partial salvation of my soul.
John Spicer left John Sebastian there to die, and probably wild animals would have got to it. The remains would never have been found.
In the West, even now, there are carnivores in the wild of Colorado. Mountain lions, bears, coyotes, every kind of description. So a body in Colorado in an unoccupied area, in 3 days you have bones because everybody's already picked it clean. Some of those bones have been dragged off and the remains have been scattered. The very common thing, Mother Nature has a very effective cleaner-upper department in the wild animals that are starving to death on the plains of Colorado. So he didn't have to bury him. Mother Nature would take care of that. He took the money. That's what he wanted.
With no one alive to arrest, Martin files a report with the district attorney's office, officially closing the case.
Larry Martin decided to donate the molding to the Fountain Valley Historical Society as a memory of that event because it's part of their history.
It is kind of the local lore now, and it's known as the murder board.
This is no doubt one of the most memorable cases of my career. I had fun working this case. I met some wonderful people working this case, and I went through some old archives that were very interesting to look through. And so yeah, it was one of those cases that ranked right up the top. This confession was written because John Spicer had a guilty conscience.
The guilt was eating him alive. And he was concerned about the afterlife, that he could not go to meet his maker in his mind with this stain on his soul. So he wrote that confession, knowing that someday someone would find it. And someday somebody did.